Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. We're sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care of Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care, and they are accepting residents as well as offering day stay and respite programs. To learn more, call 360-689-4314 and schedule a tour. Call Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island. Also, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people, our neighbors of the Suquamish tribe. We are grateful for their hospitality and we honor them. Today, we're going to be talking about history as well regarding the Bainbridge Island Historical Museum. We're being joined by Amber Buell, who is the new executive director at the Bainbridge Island Historical Museum, but not new to Kitsap County. Worked with the Kitsap historical group as well. So welcome, Amber.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us a little bit about what's going on with the historical museum and share sort of what your thoughts are, having come from the Kitsap County History Museum.
Yes. Well, I would be happy to. Thanks
Great.
for having me. I'm excited. Yeah.
So first off, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be interested in working here on Bainbridge?
Absolutely. I started out with the Kitsap County Historical Museum about 5 years ago. They were looking for an executive director with nonprofit management experience to help with the fundraising, and I fit the bill. And I was new to Kitsap County, and I thought that history museum sounded fun. I had this degree in history, and I'd been working in social services for my entire career. So I was excited for a new challenge, and I learned a lot. I got to know some folks in Kitsap County and the interesting history here. In this corner of Washington, and kind of fell in love with it. And that was how I was able to transition to this position with Bainbridge Island. I'd worked with the museum in the past and been able to attend openings. And whenever the position became available, I applied, and it worked out, and I'm excited. There are a lot of I wouldn't say a lot. There are some familiar faces that I recognize, from across the bridge. But mostly what stands out to me is the unanimous community support here, which makes my job so much more fun, because Islanders love their history and they love to talk about it, and they're very supportive and generous. And that makes my job a lot more fun when you don't have to have that piece where you want to convince people that what you're doing is really important and worthwhile. So that's probably the most notable change I've seen, which I'm glad to have it. It's just great.
I know that one of the things that has long been a mainstay of the story of the Historical Museum has been our history with the Japanese American people and the internment. And I'm just wondering if, although I'm sure that continues to be part of our story that we share and hold and maintain, does the history of Bainbridge Island and its indigenous past and Indopino people, Filipinos who came here and others, has made it kind of a richer story to tell in recent years, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. We're in the middle of an overdue change in climate where, folks who maybe weren't aware of minorities are becoming so now, and how history and behavior impacts the community as a whole. And I think that history is one that is most surprising to visitors that we have. I know that we do a lot of studies for the new exhibit, our community past to present, where we quietly look at what exhibits people stop at, how much time they spend there, and where they're really led to go, so that we can learn how to make the exhibit better. And that is one piece of history that people who aren't from around here just don't know, and it's applicable to other spots in our history. And we realize, that this terrible thing happened here, and they get to learn how Bainbridge Island responded to that, and how individuals left and how they were welcomed back to the island. And I think that really speaks to the kind of people that we have here living here. And also learning about, the Indopino population. How did that come to be? We've never really thought about it. Filipino and natives. How did this group of population grow? What were the circumstances behind that? That's really interesting as well. So I think that everyone's minds are more open to wanting to learn about other heritage and other cultures, and how they become, and the stories that they have to tell in their voices as well. So it's one of the positive things that we've been able to see. I don't think that people walk through their lives not wanting to learn about their neighbors. I think it's just something that we didn't realize we weren't doing. So it's really opened my eyes, and I think the community as a whole, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that a lot of the stories that have traditionally been told at the museum have also involved settler populations and white people moving here, and sort of discovery of the island and all that, the various industries that were created here that kind of pushed native populations out, the periods of coexistence. And so now it's in many ways, I think, an effort of working with people to capture the stories they're already telling. I think about the work that Gina Corpus has done with the Indopino story, or the kind of work that Frank Kitamoto did years ago, telling the Japanese American story, that it's sort of an opportunity for collaboration for an organization like the Historical Museum.
It really is. And the sacrifice that it takes to relive these stories, oftentimes these traumas over and over again. I first learned of Gina at the county museum when we did an Indopino exhibit there, and I had never heard the term before, I think like many people, but really learning about the circumstances behind the population, and hearing the emotion in her voice as she relays her story. Yeah, it's absolutely an opportunity for collaboration, and cultivating those relationships so that we have a mutual trust there, so that we can help amplify those stories and really share them with the community, so that they can be more aware of who they are and where they're living and what influences their everyday lives. So we're always looking to pursue and develop and cultivate those relationships so that we can share history, accurate, equitable history.
So at the current status of the Historical Museum, I know that there was an effort a while ago to try to expand the facility. We had a pandemic hit. I think you might have heard of it.
Boom. Yes.
So some of our plans and thoughts have been reorganized. But in terms of your new stewardship as the executive director, what kinds of things are you seeing as major emphases for the museum at this time in its life?
Well, currently you're right. I think, had the pandemic not happened, we would probably be well into a capital campaign for expansion, but it did. And everything is different now, as I think we're all realizing. We all talk about getting back to normal, but I think we can all agree and acknowledge that it's a new normal. Our volunteers haven't come back in the same numbers, and day-to-day life just isn't the same. We were just talking at our last board meeting about the differences between pre and not quite post, but maybe a few years later, and what our lives look like. And we all agree that we are much more patient. We have to go with the flow more. We accept outages. We accept empty shelves at the store. We accept that the places that we like to frequent may not be able to service us at the level we would like because they don't have staff. It's changed the way that we live our lives. And I think that a lot of people have been affected. They've lost people that they love, or their health has suffered, or someone that they love's health has suffered or continues to do so. So what we are really trying to do is take a step back and figure out how we can best serve the community. And what are their needs? Ideally, how can we fill that need in the end to serve our mission, which is to collect, preserve, and share the stories of the folks that live and work on Bainbridge Island. So the goal is still there. I just think that under my leadership, we're going to figure out what that new forward looks like for us, so that we're not rushing into maybe an answer to an old need that doesn't exist anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak in riddles, but really that's where we are, is at the very beginning.
So what I'm hearing is that there's sort of a reset, or maybe a listening portion, listening tour, or listening. You're looking at ways that you might be able to kind of do a little strategic adjustment to kind of see, is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're trying to figure out as a board and with our staff and within the community, what it looks like moving forward. What would you like to see from us? What void do we need to fill? We don't want to duplicate services. We don't want to create a space that won't be utilized. And we know that ourselves, we need more space. But at the end of the day, we can serve our mission where we are right now. Of course, the organization is growing and we're getting more staff and don't know where to put them all. But ultimately, what do we want to be? Do we want to be an education center? Do we want to maybe have a really robust library that attracts people from everywhere? Do we want to have a meeting space where, community members can gather and go through the archive? Well, the available archives, we can't let people in the basement, but what does that space look like, and what are the needs there? Do we, is there a need in the community to focus more on education alone? Do we need to create a space that's more interactive for visitors and school children and groups like yours? Like, what is that need? So that's the big question.
Yeah, I think
it's wide open.
Yeah, I think about, I grew up on Whidbey Island, and my mother was part of a little historical effort in Langley. And, that starts out as just kind of collecting things that you don't want to throw away, saving memories you don't want to throw away, as people age, wanting to capture their stories. And it sounds like you're looking at, obviously, there's a wealth of that kind of material that is in your archives, some of it in the basement. So there's that dual effort of like preserving what you already have and making it available. And then what do exhibits and conversations and sort of the world of museums has changed a lot since my mother was doing that in 1970. So
yeah,
I'm sure it's changed a lot here too.
It has. You've got it, Reed. That's exactly it.
So, and there are a number of other, you mentioned, we talked earlier that you came from Kitsap Wide Historical History Museum. And so there are other organizations that you want to not over duplicate.
Right. Yeah. part of my nonprofit background is, it's hard to get support for something whenever 5 other people are doing it. And it doesn't serve the community. It doesn't help anyone. We want to work together. We want to collaborate with other organizations. We don't want to work against them and how they're accomplishing their mission. So it's really just finding a solid way that we can fulfill our mission and serve the community in a positive way, in a way that's needed.
So
is the goal.
In the short term, what kinds of exhibits are sort of on your radar for the next, months and year?
Well, our community, past to present, will be coming up on a year. So we'll be rotating one of those exhibits, one of those 13 communities out and bringing another one in. We're not sure which one yet. We're still, it's going to be a very data-driven decision. And that's really the best way to do it, because they're all just so amazing. And the community organizers were just fantastic in helping us with it anyway. So that will be happening within the next few months. And then on the 11th of November, we have a new exhibit opening, and it's trees, and it'll be in the Busey Gallery, the smaller one. And it is it's a celebration of trees. We've commissioned local photographer Joel Sackett to take the photographs, and he has selected trees in the area that are, well, there are so many, actually. That is one thing that I have learned here on the island, in Washington in general, but I'd have to say on the island more than I remember at the other museum, that people love their trees. And it is a big deal. And there are lots of heritage trees here on the island. So we can't feature them all, but we will have 7 large format prints. A little bit more like a gallery experience, but they're breathtaking, and they're going to be celebrating some of our most cherished trees on the island. So we're excited for that.
Yeah, that sounds like something to look forward to. I
Absolutely.
know Joel has been on this program a couple times, and we have definitely talked about trees. Olaf Ribeiro, who was here for many years.
Yes, he's the inspiration, by the way. I didn't mention that. He's the inspiration for the exhibit. So go ahead.
And I know that he has done a lot of work in identifying those heritage trees. And for a while around town, there were trees with little URLs associated with them, so you could look up the tree. So I think it'll be fun to see that. And of course, Joel is a great photographer, so I'm sure those images are going to be stunning.
Yes. Please come, everyone. November 11th from 10 to 5 will be opening day. So love for you to come in, and it's your guess. We can try to figure out what trees you think were selected for the exhibit. 7. So.
Okay. I know that also the museum has often been a resource for people who want to learn more about where they're specifically living. You talk at all about that?
Absolutely. So we have a research library that has archives that you can dig through. And I say it like that. They're also digitized. So you can use a laptop that we have available here in the library. And you can try to see if you can find information about your land. We have plot maps, we have old city records, county records. So we, of course, are there to assist, but you can just jump on our website and reserve a time for the research library. And if you have any questions about individuals or land, we can help you find it here on Bainbridge Island. So it's popular, and it's so fun to see people learn about where they're living and get pictures of their home before changes were made over the years. It's one of my favorite things. So.
Yeah. I know that that's the, I think there was a feature in the New York Times years ago about, or not the Seattle Times years ago, about past and present, where it's, and you still see people sharing things on Facebook of what Winslow Way looked like in 1956. And then
Yes.
everybody can say, oh, yes, I used to go to the Martinique, or I can tell
Mhm.
you the story about.
Those conversations are the best. I love it when they happen in the lobby and people talk about what it was like when they were here. It's really fun. It's fun to look at the evolution of this island and where you're from and the excitement. Another really fun one is when people come and look up yearbooks. They find their parents or grandparents. It's really exciting just to see that light. We all want to be connected to something, and it's really fulfilling whenever you can see that there's a legacy there, whether it's through land or through documents or photographs. I think we all want to be remembered, and it makes us feel really good whenever we can see that something connected to us has been left behind.
If anybody has a question, they can either just type it in the chat box or open up the microphone. I know we have some folks who have some experience with the museum who are here. If you have any questions you'd like to make sure that Amber answers, that would be great. So as it sounds like it's one of the things that you're talking about when you are talking about the future of the museum, it sounds like, is both that sort of personal connection that I think has been there all along, in addition to maybe more curated sort of professional presentations. I know we have some folks who are part of the staff who have been bringing maybe more modern or sort of approach to what kind of exhibits you might be doing.
Yeah, that's the goal. Whenever we hire staff who have an expertise in a certain area, is to professionalize and streamline and organize, and really we do a lot of looking at data around here and newest trends to see how people learn and what that looks like, and how we can present an exhibit in a way that serves the most learning styles, and what keywords excite people and encourage them to read on, and is interactive good, is like, I think that the more that we learn about a specific subject, it allows us to present it in a way that benefits the majority, which is the goal. We know that now, looking at data, that people like to work through spaces, and they take completely different things out of an exhibit. So, obviously, if I walk through and then my son walks through, the things that leave an impression on me are going to be completely different from him. And we know that getting together after we do that and having a discussion really helps everyone retain more information. So yeah, we're always trying to be as effective as we can to share the information. And as technology advances, we want to make sure that we're following best practices and guidelines to preserve the collection so that it's around for as long as possible.
So I'm wondering, as you mentioned technology and new ways to interpret and access, are you discussing possible ways to make things increasingly available on the web, or okay?
Absolutely, all the time. It's always a goal. We want to be as accessible as possible. But yes, we are. We're looking to upgrade our digital system, and what we are looking at in the near future would be able to update to our website. So that would give folks a lot more access. It hasn't happened yet. So as soon as it does, we'll shout it, near and far. But right now, we do have a lot on our website. We have oral histories, and we have links to information. And you can also look at past exhibits on our website as well. So we're doing the best that we can, but yes, in the very near future, we hope to have all of that available.
The hardest thing is that kind of rich resource. It's pretty easy to put up a web page, But to actually put up deep records and searchable material, that's when it starts to get a little complicated and a little pricey. Sheila, did you have a question?
Yeah.
I do. If my cough will stay away from me, okay? I'll do my best. I was Amber, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was a volunteer docent for, I don't know, Katie, was it 10 years, 12 years, something like that, so around there. Anyway, what I wanted to do was to share the things that made my volunteering there the best. I would say that just being there was wonderful. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I enjoyed the people that I was working with. That was fun. More specifically, I loved, when I was docenting, was to be able to go in with the folks into the museum and share with them the things that I had learned and that people had taught me as a very quick go round, and then let people go in on their own. I know that's different. The layout is different now. I know that, but I'm just telling you what was good for me.
Yeah.
The other thing that probably was even more so was working with the kids. We had, because of Katie, set up this, you guys have set up this incredible learning experience for the kids in, I think, 4th and 5th grade, or 3rd and 4th grade. I may be wrong. Katie would tell us which one grade it was. But every year we worked with these kids, either on a location in Bainbridge, or a person or persons in Bainbridge. And some of the most extraordinary experiences I had were with these kids. I give you an example of one. In the museum there, I think there still is a picture of a large boat being built and several people standing within the boat. There is, when I was working with a couple of kids, a couple of young lads, one of the names was given to us, I can't remember the name, that we were going to take a look at. So we did some investigation, and come to find out, the name, that guy who was standing in the forefront of that picture with those guys on that boat was these two young lads' person. And I mean, it was they were so excited about that. I was excited. I was extraordinarily excited. We had a time when, was it Katie, was it Mr. Monroe who we called? We called Ralph Monroe because one of the kids had Ralph Monroe, and he talked with them on the phone. It was, I get goosebumps about this stuff. I mean, it's that connection with the community, because it brought in the parents of these kids. I know that. That, and then our summer camp thing that we did, 3 or 4 or 5 years worth, which was great fun too. Had brought the kids, the parents in as well. So it brought the community in. So those things have remained in my head as the joy of being a volunteer or a docent or a teacher docent or whatever you want to call me at the Historical Museum.
Oh, Sheila, thank you for sharing. It's so nice. And the connection's the best part, I think, too. Seeing anyone get excited about connections, I know it. We all want to be connected to something, but I can just see how excited. I have 12-year-old twins, and how thrilled they get when they get to make that connection too. As far as, finding out that you're related to someone in a photograph, is there anything cooler than that? So how fun.
Yes, and it works also, as we were saying, about locations, what happened where you're living, or what did this neighborhood look like? I know that Reed Hansen, who has been very involved in the museum, has led history tours cooperatively with the Senior Center and the Historical Museum for several years. And this year we also added Pete and Gilda Corpus led us on an Indepino tour around the island.
Mhm.
And those kinds of opportunities to go around and sort of envision what was here kind of makes the plasticity of humanity more evident. It's like we're all, time is kind of shrunk in those instances. And I don't know, I would hope in some of the ways when we're talking about lessons learned from the internment that it may change the future, having a great appreciation of the past.
I believe that it will.
So bainbridgehistory.org is the website. And those are the questions I had. And thank you, Sheila, for stepping in with your remembrances.
You just meet people who are really invested in the history of Bainbridge Island, and they want to talk about it and they want to experience it. And that's always a good time, which makes my job so much more enjoyable. So
I have another question. So there are so many wonderful, we have like hundreds of nonprofits around. And when I was there, I was asked a lot to, help with nonprofits telling their stories, or other organizations telling their stories, or groups telling their stories. How do you feel like the historical museum is responsible to helping, like you said, that you've got a more and more professional staff? Do they have time to advise or to help organizations on collecting their own, or do you have room to collect things for organizations?
Yeah, we just got an intern that is specializing in our Japanese and Filipino documents and artifacts that we've gotten
that's
in.
great. Have they met
Yes.
the communities yet?
We're working on it. She just started.
Okay.
But thrilled to have her, and really focusing on that. We want to make sure that we have that information accessible. So it needs to be accessioned and it needs to be, put into the system so that it's available for people to actually utilize. And as far as working with communities, I know I said that to you before. It really is a priority for me. It's history. It's our responsibility to make sure that we document not only what happened in the past, but what's happening right now. The people who are working to, the change makers that we have in our own community. But it doesn't have to even be that. If you're part of the community, your story deserves to be documented so that it can be shared in the future. And that's like a full stop right there. So we'll continue to do the best that we can to reach out, just still trying to set up oral histories because those are so important as well. So while, yes, we are trying to recruit, people with more qualifications, we're still plugging away, trying to make sure that we're getting those stories told, and please continue to bring them to us, and we will continue to come to you. And what I say is that if you think that something needs attention that's not getting it, please email me. It's amber@bainbridgehistory.org. And I won't ignore you. I want to pay attention to that. I want to make sure that we continue to have those stories to share because they're meaningful, and the work that we do is important. Not in just preserving artifacts, but telling those stories. And I think that it's Sheila's stories earlier are a perfect example of that. We all deserve to know where we come from, and we should be able to get excited about that.
If there's any way that the Senior Center can help as a location or partner, we have done some collaboration with the Historical Museum in the past. And if there's interest, if there's somebody in your organization that's interested in helping people think about how to capture their stories, what Katie, you were just saying about organizations that want to capture their stories. I know we have a big box of stuff here at about the 30 years of the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center, and we probably could learn to do more with it than we are. So I think that's probably true for a lot of organizations.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
Amber, a question.
Mhm.
Buttresses up what we're talking here, but we're also saying, also from what I suggest, my remembrances as well. Are you folks thinking about bringing in the children again from the school?
Yes. Yep. We sure are.
In what-
Excitedly so.
in what way?
So Marilee, the curator, has created some visitor experiences, and it just helps the kids navigate their way through our community past to present. And we are doing the pilot this November. And then after that, we presented it to the schools, and then we're going to start taking reservations.
Is that classes?
Yes. Yep.
Great. Okay, well, I want to thank you again for taking the time.
Yeah.
Answer questions, and we're looking forward to having you help us with the museum in the years ahead.
I'm excited too. And as soon as this pilot goes through for these children's programs, what we're offering as far as visiting and tours will be on our website. So you can look for it there. Thank you so much for having me. I've really had fun visiting.
I've really enjoyed talking to you, and
Oh, thanks.